All right, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jebb and Green Cast. I'm your host Tyler Green. With me, as always, is Jeremy Jebb Edmond.
Yes,
Jebb,
final
how
man
are you?
Jeb. Good. How are you, Tyler? And today we have Derrick Bostrom, right? Bostrom.
Correct.
I want to make sure I said it
Yep,
right.
Bostrom. It's
Bostrom. Okay,
Bostrom.
cool, awesome.
Of the Meat
Of the
Puppets.
Meat Puppets, of one of the coolest bands I think for their time, and one of the coolest bands to start garage rocking. So I'll
One of
start
Yeah,
the
with
Derek,
coolest
how are
bands of
you?
all time.
one of the coolest
Uh,
bands of all time.
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful December afternoon here in Phoenix. It's been raining a little bit.
Oh,
The sun really wants to come out, and I really want to go out too. It's very nice outside.
Oh
So
God, yeah.
we
I
were
mean,
actually on in Pioneer Town, California, last week at this time. We did our annual. We did a show in Phoenix the day after Thanksgiving, and then we traveled out to Pioneer Town to play at Pappy and
awesome.
Harriet's on Saturday. This particular year, it was cold as the bejesus, about 39 degrees at one point, and to the point where we basically huddled in the dressing room and hardly came out except for to do the show, which was, as always, excellent.
Is this the
And
tour with Mudhoney, or is that currently not happening yet? Or is
no,
that? Oh,
that's
this is
not.
coming up. Okay.
That doesn't happen until May.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I'm a big fan of
yeah.
Mudhoney as well. It's cool. I wish you guys were coming over here, but that's all right. You know, money is money, and it's hard
Well,
to tour.
we'll make it. We'll make it over. We were there
Perfect.
earlier this year. So
Yeah,
in fact, you guys, one of you guys saw us. I want to say in Connecticut.
yeah, that was
Correct.
me.
yeah,
I
that was
saw you at
Jebb.
I saw you at the space, and you
That
signed
was a
my
terrific show.
fuzz pedal,
Yeah.
and I had you write the Meat Puppets on it. Of all people, I was like, "Can you write the band's name on here?"
Oh, I remember that.
That
Yeah.
was fun, and my dad
Um,
was excited too. It was great, great time.
Yeah, Derek, when
well,
was the last time you guys played Philly?
well, we played in Philadelphia about a week prior to that Connecticut
Yeah, that's
show.
right. That's right.
Right,
There's
yeah.
a real good video of it on YouTube. It was a mighty good show. And God, I can't remember the venue, but it was a older building that looked like it was in a perpetual state of renovation with lots of like subterranean clubs in it that are just like small places where people hipsters would have drinks and stuff like
Ah,
that. And then there
Oh
were
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was a, it,
Underground Arts.
yeah, that was it. And it
oh,
was
cool.
also cold as hell, and
Can't get
rainy.
away from
Just
it.
like it is today here in the
It was a
Northeast.
that was a long
Yeah.
day because we got up. We had to drive from Brooklyn overnight to get within striking distance of the World Cafe show, which was in the morning.
Oh
So
wow.
we were up all day, and the Philly show was both lubricated because we had played already once that day, but also loopy because we were all tired as hell. And then the next day we had to drive to Asbury Park, where we were really tired, and it was also a really
Jersey.
great show. So
Asbury
the
Park is
thing,
King Crimson, all those guys, playing
the,
there.
the
Yeah.
the hell of touring is that you can't get around the incredibly long drives, and
Ah,
Oh
the
jeez.
it seems like the more tired you are, and the more shows you do, the cooler it gets,
there you go.
because it's just like this constant state of refining what you can and can't do. And as we're all approaching our seventh decade or seventh decade, our 60s,
Damn.
we're that's there's that experience that is combined with the slow but sure lack of ability, which tends to hone the music, and
Yeah.
it's just we're it just gets cooler and cooler the more we do it. That said, this next Mudhoney leg is going to have a ton of driving,
Yeah.
and I suspect that my ability to play while exhausted will
Is the
be really
Mudhoney
put
leg
to the
coming to the
test.
East Coast or no? Is it just
I
on?
don't I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
let
Right?
us know. Let us know.
Though
We will be there.
we tell the world as soon
Awesome.
as we find out,
Perfect.
soon as we're allowed to
Yeah,
release
of
it.
course.
However, we don't play favorites, so
No,
I
I
will not be
understand that.
giving you a personal call.
No, no, no. I understand that. I
uh,
meant let us know in general world, but you guys do a great job. I was updated as soon as it came out. I was instant, and I was like, oh, and I think I messaged Joe. I was like, I see you playing with Mudhoney. I was
yeah,
like, they're cool. I love them.
well, we the part of the beauty of the interweb is that you've got all of these young people
Hmm.
who consider themselves to be geniuses at social networking and social what do you call it? Social yeah,
Social
whatever.
networking, yeah.
Media,
Social
social media,
media.
stuff like that.
And
Yeah.
so they all just assume that we older people don't know anything, so
Nah.
they're always badgering us to make sure that we do X, Y, and Z
Nah,
the way
no.
that up to their standards.
Yeah,
So
it's
we're well
it's
taken care of by
that's
our
awesome.
youthful people.
You know, but it helps because it helps keep you guys going and touring and keeping it up too. But at the same time, it's like we got this, and I get it.
Well, we
Exactly.
certainly
Okay.
we got the
So,
stuff at our end, and
Yeah.
as long as it's just
Fans.
basically a question of like making sure that advertisers are given access to our social media
Oh, of
sites so
course,
they
yeah.
can post ads on it, and they do it.
That's great.
They do it adamantly.
yeah.
After all, when you're dealing with a marginally popular band like Meat Puppets, you don't want to take anything for granted.
No, definitely, and especially and then that's when they get people are lucky enough to have you guys as to advertise you guys, and it's crazy to like exactly. I got a cool.
When you're working when you're working on the
Mhm.
level of the band, you really rely on people who are passionate
Yeah.
about you, because we're not generating Elton John type compensation for our people. So
Well, it's kind of like how
it's always
Ron got into the band, the keyboardist you guys got now. Like, I feel like he was a fan, and I'm talking to Ron a lot. He's really cool. Actually, it was cool because at that space show, I'm walking out, and I only knew really the three of you guys because I've been like listening to Sam and stuff like that, the earlier stuff, right? And I thought there was only then you got Elmo now in the band, you got Kirk's son too, and it's just really cool. And I gave Chris a huge hug when he came out at the end too. Just happy to see him in his recovery and everything as well. I just been a huge fan of following you guys. And
Wait, hold on. Chris recovered?
I don't. Oh wait, yeah.
Just kidding.
All right, Chris, if you ever come on, it's Derrick. It's not me.
He still looks ugly to me.
Oh man.
No, it's so.
No,
I watched that CBS one there, the thing, but that's funny.
Chris has
We
always
gotta-
been a serious piece of work in my mind.
He's
I've
a good
always
guy.
enjoyed playing with him. He's just an absolute crazy musician, and he and I have kind of taught each other how to
Oh, that's
play.
awesome.
And after 20 years of being without him, getting back together, I was like, geez, I really missed this relationship. So
Well, that's always a good thing in
you
a
won't
band,
hear-
you know.
you won't hear me saying anything negative about him.
There you go.
The only negative I will say about Chris is that the stuff that he and I play together is like can't be used in the band hardly at all. It's just wacky, freeform, jazzy,
That's awesome.
jams. And then when we play with the band, we're both trying to keep each other from playing too crazy.
Well, that's why I like how you guys
and
do
that's
like the
the
improv
weirdest thing
stuff
about-
live too. I love it.
Yeah,
Like,
we
in a
definitely
way.
do. So
It shows. Tyler, if you want to hit with one of the
if
questions,
it were up to me,
once-
if it were up to me, we do nothing but jams.
I
But,
would love it.
Good thing it's not up to me.
yeah, right. We gotta have gotta have the lyrics in there at some point, right? Nah, I'm in a jam band too. I understand. Tyler, if you want to ask one of the questions, go ahead, man.
All right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Derrick, from drummer to drummer,
There you go.
what got you into drumming?
Well, the first drum kit the first time I played the drums was to a Banana Splits record back in probably 1968.
yeah.
I got coffee cans. For those of your younger listeners may not be aware of this, but coffee used to come in actual tin cans,
Yeah.
and you would cut the bottoms off of it and flip them over and play them with pieces of coat hanger.
Huh.
Or spoons from your mother's silverware collection, and so that was what got me started. Probably, so I guess my first drum idol was a puppet named Bingo, an orange
yeah.
orangutan who played the drums for the Banana Splits.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And to be fair, the Banana Splits do have good songs,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
Honestly.
and a good
well,
movie
yeah.
that actually came out recently for those who may not know.
Oh, really?
Either way, beyond that, it was punk rock. And
Yeah.
the main reason I got into drums is because I had a friend who played guitar, and I had started having like summer jobs and whatnot, and then was able to buy all the records I wanted. And my mom was like, "Well, what would you like for Christmas?" I'm like, "I don't know, set of drums maybe." So she got me this really crummy set of drums from Sears, And so that's what got started. Was my mom got me a set. She actually got me a set of drums in 1968 as well.
Oh wow.
But my little brother destroyed them within months, and I never kept up on it. But
Oh
then
God.
there was the usual piano lessons, guitar lessons, and it didn't really take. I will confess to not being much of a quote unquote musician, but I am a dedicated artist and deconstructionalist, blah 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 blah. So I do like my punk rock,
Yeah.
and
Well, that explains
so
Me
I
Puppets
got
1.
it. And then I wanted to get into a punk band, and I went through all of my friends, and most of them were much more interested in Terrapin Station and the new Crosby, Stills and Nash reunion, which I was not into. But Kurt was starting to lean towards the punk rock, not so much because he was into the punk thing, but because he admired the Dionysian elements of it, which of course was the main thing I was dedicated to. So it was like a lot of the punk bands in Phoenix were like us in that they had kind of started off really into prog rock and got into punk rock from that very very loose, non-commercial, like I say, Dionysian element where being a good player was not going to be a hindrance. Whereas a lot of punk rock, especially the punk rock I listened to, was very rudimentary, and that was one of the reasons that made me think I could do it. But the boys were interested in it because they had the chops to take it to the point where they could just absolutely, go nuts.
Well, it's like
So
the In
we
the
were
Car
a
EP
great
that you guys
combination.
had, where it's just very
Yeah,
much like
good
30-second
example.
songs and stuff, and it's like literally the whole thing is like I forget how long that was. That was a really short album too, right? It's like an EP, but it's very quick.
It's a very, very thrashy, but also
Yeah.
kind of beef hearty. And so we had this kind of beef heart punk rock kind of vibe
Oh,
in the
perfect.
early days. And then once we got onto SST, we were kind of like, this is punk rock that we don't like, this hardcore stuff. So we started revisiting our roots and playing, taking a different different tack, playing more folkish country stuff, and then we slowly but surely started incorporating some of our more prog rock influences into the music. And now it's still kind of not these days. Kurt pretty much wants to stick to a kind of a folky kind of
Yeah.
a thing, but he's still pretty psychedelic. In fact, we did some recording in advance of our shows last week just to kind of get a couple of songs done, and that was less country and a little bit more psychedelic. So we're continuing to work together post Dusty Notes, though we don't really have a plan to release another album, but
Oh,
we're
okay.
working on it.
And then, like, because the Coming Down is a perfect like country song that you guys have like that folky kind of, but it's your own style, and I just think that's so cool to have like a unique. Because I love Coming Down. That's one of the coolest songs to be, and that's Satellite's pretty funky too, and I love that song too.
Yeah, I love all
That's
those
a great
songs
album.
about all those songs about climbing, going up, coming
Yeah.
down, returning, being in the mountains. They're all kind of a piece to me.
It's a good way
So
to like it's an environment you can remember and be part of, and you guys always open with that I think at every show, right? Is Coming Down
well,
lately?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's funny because obviously we're considered a desert band, so I leave it to consider just what the metaphor of the mountain might mean to a band that lives in such a flat terrain.
I love it. Something different. I got a cool question. So you kind of covered it a little bit, but with the stuff, but how did like the experience of like did the fans like when you switched from like that raw punk to the style that you are now? Like Meat Puppets 2 is very different from Meat Puppets 1, and did the fans react differently, or how did that go about?
Well, yeah, it expanded
Yeah.
our reach considerably. For one thing, we were already getting spit upon and had stuff thrown at us by the Black Flag fans, even
Oh.
when we were playing punk rock. So our interest in our fan base in Phoenix, they got it. But we found that once we went, when we first started working with the folks that put out our first EP, they got it. But through a series of fallings out with some of those folks, we wound up working with SST, and we didn't feel like they got it at all. So making our point, very, very, very clear with Meat Puppets 2 and Up on the Sun was an attempt to make sure that we were not misunderstood in the wrong way. For certainly we're always misunderstood. But no, we got great reviews from Meat Puppets 2. We got great reviews from Up on the Sun. But the problem is our live shows still were a lot more like our first album. So after we started getting a bigger audience with our 2 popular albums, then the word started getting out. It's like, I went and saw these guys live, and they did a lot of Elvis covers, and they can't sing very well. And so then we began to, worry about that whole thing. And then next thing you know, our peers are starting to get signed to majors, and they're like, Meat Puppets, they can't sing, and they can't really live up to the potential of their records. We don't think they're really a real band. So we began to, knuckle under to the pressure, fight amongst ourselves, second guess ourselves, and kept on working until we finally became a major label artist. And then you all Nirvana fans began to take notice.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we'd broken up. Anyway, then I went and got a job. I got married. Chris went in and out of rehab and in and out of jail. And Kurt tried to keep playing music in one form or another. He kept it going. I continued to write about the band on my website, and I continued to work with record labels and to release reissues and stuff. But for all practical purposes, the 3 of us were not communicating at all. I had always heard that Chris blamed himself for the band stopping, but really I tended to blame the pressures of the major labels, who I found to be very distasteful. And once the major label thing was out of the picture, Kurt began to work with smaller labels to put out records and stuff like that, and his thing stabilized. Chris got out of jail, got his situation squared away. They did several albums together. And then, once and I started catching wind that, people were sniffing around thinking about making, a teen comedy about the band's past using the buddy angle of the brothers' reconciliation. I was like, well, I definitely don't want them doing this without me, because I don't want this to be wrong. And so started, talking with their camps through my manager and their managers. And then the Hall of Fame thing started up, and I was like, well, hell, this sounds creepy. And their manager reached out to me and said, hey, Kurt would love to talk to you about this. So I got him on the phone, and he, lo and behold, he thought it was kind of creepy too. And I was like, well, then what we need to do is we need to get back together, play this show, and be as sloppy as we can, since we haven't played together in 25 years.
There you go.
And see what people think. And I'll tell you what people think. Now, some of the older people, they left. But our fans fucking began to cry, as did we. And I was like, oh, this feels right. And I suddenly realized, oh, this is happening on a molecular level with me. This is something I haven't felt hadn't felt that way since for so long, because for so long there had been this period of, being second guessed by the media, by major labels, and having a lot of the early spark taken out of it. And I was like, oh, I have my own visual means of support, as do these guys. We don't have to do this for any reason but our own.
Yeah.
We don't need to try to please y'all Nirvana fans or anything like that.
No.
We can do our own thing. In which case, it became clear that this was really a good thing. Now, but it wasn't until their drummer Shandon decided to move to Europe for me to be able to put my reevaluation of the band into practice.
This was after the Golden Lies era, after Rise to the Knees and stuff like that. Okay.
yeah, those guys have been putting out records pretty regularly, and then they did an album called Rat Farm about 6 years
Yeah.
ago, and then Kurt kind of stopped writing for a while, and hadn't really, they kind of had been where they'd been putting out a record every year or so. Suddenly there had been like a 5-year gap. It really wasn't until Ron had met the boys backstage. He's a big fan, and Chris, who loves to play music, period, got some copies of Ron's music, and was like, "Hey, this guy's not just like some fanboy.
Yeah.
He's a really talented artist." And so Chris, started up a kind of a relationship with Ron, and they
Ron's
started
really
playing
nice.
together their little things. And,
Really nice guy. Yeah.
And so Chris was like, "Kurt, this Ron guy is for real." And Kurt started corresponding with Ron, and next thing you know, he invited him to kind of work on some songs that Kurt had written. Kurt was looking to move into a little bit more, I wouldn't say a countryish thing, but maybe a little bit more rootsy.
Okay.
You wouldn't. I do Kurt a disservice by trying to define his music.
He's his
in
own
one way or
genre.
another. Bottom line is, like, he started to like write some stuff that was a little bit, it was like acoustic based. Basically, he had some chord patterns he had come up with, and him and Ron got together and kind of arranged some of them, and Ron kind of helped him put a little bit of it into a kind of a song format. And then they were like, "Well, let's go into the studio and record." And they brought Ron in. Of course, Elmo had been playing with the band for a while, but this was the first opportunity. Bringing in keyboards, it was like,
Yeah,
well,
it's
we're
different too.
going to move Elmo more to the forefront as well, because Kurt is always looking for an opportunity to play as little as possible. And his idea was like, I'm just going to play acoustic guitar on this. I'm going to have Ron fill up the space, and I'll have Elmo play more electric guitar. And then, as it happened, Shandon decided to leave the band in the middle of the project, so I was able to come in, add my own style to the proceedings, and for about a year we just kind of didn't really play together or anything, because we all live in different cities. And then Chris and Elmo and I would rehearse, but Kurt and Ron would live elsewhere. So it wasn't until this year, when we started getting on the road, that we really started to get a sense of what we've got, which is well, we still are in the process of getting.
Oh, I love Dust. This Dusty Knows, correct?
'Cause,
That's a stellar album too.
yeah, and of course we were just gobsmacked at how good Dusty Notes came out. It's like, oh, this is way better than we
and
thought.
It's so
it would be.
different
It was
from like
astounding.
a fan coming from like Too High and Dry. It's more you guys, like it's you. And I'm not saying like it's cool to see you guys evolve and become truly what you guys want to be, and it's cool to see. And that's why like we had to go to the puppet show when they were at the space, because we knew that would be like one of those opportunities that you have to go and see them. It was just one of those
I
things.
wouldn't disagree.
Yeah, right.
I think we definitely should come see
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Well, we're not. It's not like we don't have a set plan, but
Yeah.
we are still. There is definitely, like, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen from night to night.
No, because
we
like
don't.
you guys do like a Sloop John B sometimes comes out after certain songs, and then other nights like I watch, like I know you upload to the archive for the puppets and do all that stuff, and it's cool
Yep.
to see like different shows, similar set list, but then all of a sudden there's a little bit at the end, there's a jam. The jam's always different, which is amazing. And I love that jam you guys did for Lake of Fire, because it was like, what song are you going to go into? And it was like a very long intro, and I was like, this is, and the guy next to me in the that I met in the crowd, and you make friends too of like the fellow fans of the puppets too. And I met a couple really cool guys that at the end, when we were all meeting you guys at the end, it was just something so like a magical feeling to be there. And I saw the Posies there about a couple months before for a private show that they did for a wedding, and it was just the space is a beautiful venue to have bands come in and to give to fans something they've always wanted, to meet these guys too, if it's appropriate, of course. And I think it was cool just hanging out at the end, and it was like 11 at night, and just chilling with these guys. And I got to talk to Ron for a while, which was really cool to find out that he was a fan at first and then joined the band, which is something that usually it's like, oh, they joined the band, they just heard us. This guy actually loved you guys, which is, and still does, I bet.
Yeah,
and it's
there are
awesome.
plenty of people who love us, and
Yeah.
some of them are, it's not like we're out there wanting to hang out with fans all the time.
No, of
No
course.
offense. So
No, of
Ron
course, I
was like
understand that.
Ron is a unique kind of a character in that he actually was able to hang with us.
Yeah.
And Ron is in a lot of bands. He's a
Oh, wow.
professional musician. He makes his living running all up and down the eastern seaboard and over to Europe. Plus, he does like accompaniment work at one of the universities.
Oh, it's like a studio
out
musician that pops along, and you just like hire for certain parts and stuff as well.
It's great. He's in a good half dozen or more bands, some of which he's in like regularly, some he just sets in with. I'm happy to say that we are one of his favorite groups that he plays with. There are others. There's a fella who lives in Europe named Peter Evans that has like the Peter Evans combo quintet. I'm not sure, it depends, but I guess right now it's the Peter Evans quintet. That stuff is fabulous. He's also affiliated with a group called Mostly Other People Do the Killing. He plays with just a whole bunch of other people. He's very prolific.
That's awesome.
We're lucky that he's interested in playing with us, because he brings a level of, not just a level of musicianship, but a level of adventurousness that we always had. And it's just so weird, because when we were a three-piece, we practiced every day. We knew our stuff backwards. We would woodshed. For instance, we recorded Up on the Sun in 3 days, but the only reason we were able to do that is because we practiced the thing every day for a year. And we don't do that anymore. We'll generally put together our stuff in the studio and take it out later. Ron being a intelligent, very musically intelligent, it's helpful, because the three of us, we work on a non-musical, non-verbal level. We're just intuitive. Elmo is the same way. He's as gifted as Ron is in his own way. He's not a schooled musician the way Ron is, but he has been making music for decades as well. And he grew up with the band, so he knows us backwards. So when we get together, we rely heavily on an intuition that we have, and a mutual love of each other. That's just like, I don't know. I would hope that all bands are like this, but
our band
we
recently, for the Sane Riot that I'm in, and we do we just recently messaged a guy who does music theory, knows all this stuff. Because three of us, we have a keyboardist now as well who's older. We all kind of just have been around, and it's nice to learn, because I would be cool to learn and progress further to get to where we want to be, but still have the the music and the ideas, but put them in. They should be like as a puzzle, put together. So
it's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same thing for me, because I feel like if you're gonna be a musician, I feel like that there is no limit as to what you can learn. Like, you can't be a musician and say, "Oh, I know everything. I know how to play this. I'll be fine. I don't need to learn anything else."
Well, that's hardly musicianship. I mean, musicianship's definitely a process of discovery. My brother is also studied classical music in college.
Cool.
And the level that he does it at is like literally notation. He used to show me page after page of hand scrawled notes in his notebook of just fractions. And I was like, I'm going to turn this into musical notation, and then I'm going to play it. And I was like,
really?
You're doing what?
What are you doing?
Yeah, so it's like music.
Yeah.
Music is a language that is required because it communicates
like math,
something
as well.
that no other language is suitable to communicate. So, music is definitely not just about going out on the road and pulling chicks.
Yeah, no, exactly.
For sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blow your mind.
No, I'm over here like,
wait,
it's not for chicks?
I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just picking up my brain matter off the floor right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I gotta go.
I mean, I do now that I'm more composed. Now that I'm more composed, you talked about a little bit about what it was like, when Nirvana was around and you guys were around, like, and everybody was getting picked up on major labels. Could you go a little more in depth as to what the music scene was like for you guys back then?
Well, you want to let's say it started out as a very DIY kind of a thing with very isolated kinds of local scenes, right? Certain bands with entrepreneurial spirits, like Black
Right.
Flag, began to put together labels, and then Black Flag, in their case, also had a booking wing, and they went out and you know, they blazed the trail and did did national tours, and they definitely were playing for nothing and sleeping on people's floors, and they went out in vans looking for like-minded people that they could set up a network with, and we benefited hugely from that. They had their own, there was a distribution network of indie, labels and indie distributors that were all feeding into this. There were certain bigger bands like us, Black Flag, Husker Du, Minutemen, on the SST, and those were the big releases. And like any label, the big releases would help fuel the new releases. So, you would have, so it was basically a fluid kind of a thing that was growing and organic. Once the major labels started getting involved in the late 80s, mid 80s, they began to take some of the oxygen out of that scene by depriving the scene of their most important acts. So obviously, say you've got a label like SST that's got, say, a half dozen tentpole acts, right? And those are their big money makers. Without those, the capital from those releases, they can't operate, they can't sign new acts. That you need the big tentpole releases to help subsidize the smaller ones. It's just business. I mean, it's like the larger acts may not like being carrying around smaller acts, but that's just
but you
the
need
nature
that,
of the
though,
game.
definitely.
Once
you need the smaller.
Once the capital from the large acts is pulled out of the system, the distribution network began to falter because most of the cash was being pulled out of it by the majors. So by the late 80s, certain labels were closing, certain distributors were going bankrupt, and what I'm talking about here, gentlemen, is co-option by the major labels.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we had not much choice but to join in so that we could continue. Plus, when you're doing it on your own, it's exhausting. As you get older, you'll get burned out, and you're like, you know what? If we were on a major label, we could get label support, and we could hire somebody to drive us.
Yeah,
and
there's
that's
stuff
what we
like
did.
that too.
And so, slowly but surely, all of these bands wind up either A, selling a lot, or B, owing the major label a ton of money, which is in our case. So
yeah,
we got a nice gold record out of Too High to Die.
Yeah.
We also got a huge debt.
Hey, guess what? You got to suffer now. It's like, geez.
Well, yeah. I mean, we and that's so consequently, our major label releases are no longer in print. We're not, we don't have a relationship with these labels anymore. We played the game. We were used by the majors, and we were spit out like most of the other labels, bands, and now we're back on our own. And frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because I would much rather struggle and hold a sense of reality and ownership in my music than have to endure this sense of unreality that comes with working for the man.
Exactly, yeah.
No,
and you probably
yeah.
have more freedom that way as well.
So yeah, it's a lot more fun now. It's just the relationships between the members is better. Once you just know where you stand when
and you focus on the band more than focusing on like all the management and stuff and all that.
On the
it's
money.
More, it should be the music, But it's really tough now for artists, and Tyler and I both are in and out of with music and stuff, and being here. That's why we like talking to the artists, right, Tyler? To kind of have that feel of like to learn from you guys, so people can be inspired to go make music and not be afraid to say this is who I am and this is my voice.
Yep. Well,
stuff
you
like
can't
that.
make any money off of it really anymore.
No, it's very tough. You have to have the right people, right time.
Well, here's the thing about rock and roll anymore is it's not around. It's not like when I was a kid, rock and roll was around. Rock and roll is now kind of like what big band music was when I was a kid. It's like you have to look for it. You have to it's not spoon-fed you on the radio. It's not. It's something that you have to search out.
And I talk with my dad about that a lot too.
Because the internet, you can.
Yeah, and that's nowadays, a plus.
Well, it can be a plus.
Yeah.
We're dedicated to a certain level of personal freedom that I, frankly, as a 60-year-old curmudgeon, don't see in a lot of the younger. This whole America's Got Talent, TV-related, musical focus, this Las Vegas-y, Broadway showy rock and roll. I'm just not into it. I just don't think it's
I want raw garage rock.
Oh yeah.
I only want people at our shows to get high and go crazy.
And you know
I'm
what?
Not interested in them doing anything else.
I love it. Because it's like I was sitting right in front seeing you guys. Now this is an experience to remember, right? Seeing you guys and being in the front row and having people around me just going nuts, going, I love this band, and I'm just looking, I'm like, me too. And it's just something that it should be that way. It should be like the old days, because you went to go see the Rolling Stones or you went to go see Zappa and it was like that, I think it's cool that you guys still have fans, and it's extremely important, which is awesome that you guys give back and give us time for I want to thank you, Derrick, for coming on for Tyler and I to be able to take time to talk about the puppets.
Yeah, really, thank you.
And it's amazing.
Well,
good end of the year.
I like doing interviews. I like chatting.
Perfect.
I like. I'm a podcast fan myself.
Awesome.
Obviously. So.
And so do we.
Yeah, we enjoy it.
Obviously, a good podcast. My wife, she's an NPR fan, so she doesn't really like the podcast format so much. Like when she's like, it just sounds like a bunch of people getting together and talking.
That's what it's supposed to be.
That's what's good about it.
That's exactly why we love it, though.
Yeah, that's why the only podcasts I listen to are the ones where I like listening to the conversation, right?
Like I like thanks to Tyler, it got me into Recording Studio Rockstar / Shaw, and Tyler, thank you for showing me that. I love that podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just it reminded me of like having
fun.
humble soul of a guy asking people about their equipment and DIY stuff, and it inspired, I think, both of us to kind of start a podcast, and it's just been really cool just being able to have you guys on, and it's all because of a message on Facebook. I don't go harassing people, I just enjoy it, and Tyler does the same, and we've had some really cool guests, and Derrick, you're on the top of that list right now.
You better believe it.
And, absolutely,
isn't it great that you can actually do this?
I know, it's crazy.
There's a lot of different ways you can make your podcast, a lot of different ways you can distribute it.
I have to thank the internet for that one.
Aside from your Stitchery and your NPRs who are trying to take it over, they're gonna have a real hard time.
I'm not gonna let it go.
I don't know if you
Tyler and I are gonna fight.
So this is one of the reasons why I say to you guys, what I love about the Meat Puppets is that I don't have to do it for money.
Yes.
What I love about the internet is that you can give stuff away.
Yeah.
You can get stuff people, and as long as you don't worry about money, you can do shit.
That's why I love Bandcamp. All my albums are free. My buddy got me a shout out to Owen Radford for who was a past podcast guest as well, and he set me up on Bandcamp because I literally could just put everything up for free and donations are asked, but I don't expect. I just want to make music. I love let people know that music is healing, and that's what I like about the puppets, because in a different way, even though you guys are raw, I love it because it's something not polished. But when you guys come out with stuff, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing.
Hold on, gentlemen. Gentlemen.
So,
the Meat Puppets are polished.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
We want it to sound this way.
It's perfect.
We make a concerted effort to make it sound
that's what I meant.
It does.
No,
it's not that it's not polished.
I meant I used the wrong word.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I assume I just want
to perfect. Yeah.
Want to give you a little sense of hell, I forgot the word. Anyway, we want the music to be this way.
Yeah.
We want it to be loose. We want to keep things
and that's
open.
How it should
be. We can't make it as loose as we want it to be. We can't keep out of our own way as much as we want to. We all have different. We approach it. It's holistic. It's like that's the thing about touring that's so mind blowing. It's like we don't travel with our own sound system. We don't travel with a sound man. Every night it sounds different every
Oh, that's
night.
awesome.
The acoustics are different, the audience is different.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds like shit, sometimes it doesn't, and every night it's different because of the circumstances. And it's alive, it's organic, it's ballistic, it's real, it's not fake. It's not about how it sounds, it's about what it is. And you can quote me on that.
I will.
And we
I don't
shall.
take thing out of. We will. No, thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it. I didn't want to make sure because no, like what I meant, and you got it, which is awesome. But it's like no, it's perfect to have bands out there, and you guys are inspiring a ton. You inspired me to be in a band, and I wanted to thank you for that because it shows that you don't have to listen to the corporate and what they tell you to do. You can be yourself. You just you have to network, and it's very important and stuff like that as well. So again. And Derrick, thank you for your time. Amazing opportunity to talk to one of my favorite drummers of all time. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, really. Thank you so much.
you
From
so
one from one drummer to another.
There you
It was
go.
awesome having you on.
I appreciate it. I will let you guys get back to your next guest. Good luck on
perfect.
your,
Thank you
your
so
fall
much.
push.
Musical
And I hope
journey
you
here,
guys
and
get,
we'll have
good
you on again to
podcasts
talk
out of
other
this.
bands if you ever want to. We do a cool little band chat thing where we have a band come on or a guest come on to talk with other guests about like Badfinger or Big Star or stuff like bands that weren't really as well or bands that are like Cheap Trick and stuff like that. So we'll definitely
reach
keep
out
you in
to me.
touch. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Bye,
I'll let you
everybody.
guys go now. All right.
Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.